And
Right. Hello, everybody. So sorry for that technical glitch, but I'm here to talk about Dataswift, a little bit about Journey. Who is Dataswift? We are a global technology provider of personal data solutions. Hopefully this works. I am supposed to just tap, right? Tap. It didn't go. Right. Okay. So I suppose I would just have to say next. Just to give you a little bit of our history, we come from 10 universities, more than 33 million pounds worth of grants, trying to restructure and redesign the personal data economy. I'm a market design economist. What it basically means is we try to align incentive and to redesign certain assets, namely data, to ensure that the property rights could sit at the right place so that markets could function a little bit more normally. That's a little bit of our history. Next. Next. Right. What we do as Dataswift is we provide essential infrastructure and tools. We have a 3-layer cake, we call it. At the base is the organization and personal data accounts, an infrastructure of personal data servers legally owned by either individual or organizations. Above that, we have the data passport technology suite, which is the technology for data portability. And above the 3rd layer is the data passport, data pass networks, which I'm going to talk to you about today, which is the community network for audience matching. Next. So at the base layer, who we are, just a very quick understanding. We have built an incredible piece of infrastructure technology where every individual person or organization can have a personal data server or an organizational data server that can be spun out within 3 seconds. It's your own data server of which you have your own database, and therefore the legal ownership of all the data within is belonging to either a legal person, which is an organization, or a natural person, which is an individual. This is very near and dear to fundamental rights in property. And so a lot of my work deals with property rights and redesigning property rights to ensure that individuals have property rights on the internet and ensure that you are allowed to then contract on it. So that's at the base infrastructure of personal data accounts that sits on personal data servers. Next. Above that, we quite quickly realize if you think about the base personal data accounts, much like your banking account or bank account infrastructure, above your banking account infrastructure, you have things like BACS and CHAPS and SWIFT and all sorts of schemes. We've had to build schemes in terms of enabling personal data to be transactable, whether it's third-party data coming in from Facebook or Google or any app or your credit score from any company, all the way to you holding it and now you want to exchange it or you're giving it to someone else to transform that third party into second-party data access. At the same time, we also allow individual apps to actually sit on top of the personal data server infrastructure to provide identity and to provide storage. And that is the data exchange scheme, ensuring transactability of all data and making sure the separations of rights are there. And we are a scheme operator as well. Next. So what is the big deal? What is the at-scale impact of our technology? Well, you've heard from quite a few people, today's digital life is tough. Openly, without data subjects knowledge, largely without secure encryption, we've had quite a lot of problems. You've got a lot of exploitation of data without subjects authorization. You have energy demand from all these siloed centralized systems that are literally consuming a lot of energy to ensure people, mostly duplicated data. And then you also have data regulations stopping data from being able to move around. So you get the worst of all worlds. Data can't move, and when it moves, it's not safe. And when it wants to move safely, it's expensive. And that's the kind of world that we are today, and that has spawned the internet, the dark web, and all sorts of nefarious activities. Next. What we aim to achieve tomorrow is a personal data account, interacting with organization data accounts, essentially enabling personal data exchange, a safe way of making sure that data can be transferred and made portable. Now, the way we do that is very similar to the way bank accounts make your money portable. Like we always say, you don't wake up in the middle of the night wondering whether your money is safe. It just is. When you go to a merchant and transact on $1 or $10, you believe that merchant is safe. And you should have that belief, even with your own data. In order to do that, we had to build an infrastructure to allow that level of safety, that level of transactions, and decentralizing legal data ownership to individuals and to many extent the organization as well. The impact of that is therefore, we should then be having ability to have secure, decentralized, portable digital identity and data to be exchanged at scale. So it combines digital identity, web 3.0, I don't know where that 9 came from, and edge computing. Next. How will we scale? For every business out there, they instantly address 2 major pain points. Number 1, we free up the data that you have within an organization to get you more than, in many cases, even more than 100% of income gain. Because when you return it, just like the money that goes out of an organization's hand and gets placed in a bank account can be used for transacting again. And on the OPEX reduction, up to 23% reduction in operating expenses for hosting data in your own backend servers. Why? Because centralized systems have to keep the lights on, even whether it's 1 person or 10% or 1 million people going into their storage. When you have decentralized data servers, you only turn the electricity on for those people who are accessing the storage. Next. Before Dataswift, I get asked this question, what is the difference between you and blockchain? Well, here you see it. Before Dataswift, there was no alternative to blockchains in the distributed ledger space. We have huge issues when it came to collaboration, storing data in any form, being flexible in any form of computation, being able to be scalable, have a very fast approval time with low energy demand. With Dataswift's PDAs and ODAs, the very DNA of it is server. And because every single person owns their own decentralized data server, it now opens up a whole lot of possibilities. Next. So I want to talk a little bit about what is currently being rolled out in Illyria and elsewhere. Instead of talking about the infrastructure and technology, I get a little bit bored with that. Let's talk about the exciting stuff that's happening on the data passporting world. First, let's talk about the problems. Next. So as you heard me say, there's a massive problem with portability. We have data not being able to move from one app to another app, data not able to move from one country to another country. We also have consumer confidence and trust hugely being eroded, and they are not being included and participating in these transfers. So the current structure of data ownership in its centralized siloed form creates a lot of friction. That's on the supply side, which means where your data, individual's data currently is sitting. Next. On the demand side, it's even more broken. The advertising system is having a huge amount of waste due to fraud. There's about $100 million a day completely wasted. 56% ads are not seen, hugely inaccurate, very, very low engagement rate for brands. Hugely misaligned audiences and ad fraud. And also, if you talk to all the CIOs and the CMOs, consumers are no longer thinking that they can be the product. Next. How is Dataswift solving this? Very simply, we match directly. Whatever the data source is that can be verified by an external data source, we match with audience and data that merchants and organizations want to have, particularly if they want to offer content, perks, discounts for advertisement. We do this matching through a particular application functionality called a personal data passport. Now, the data passport is a functionality within any app. It doesn't have to be an app, but it can, because obviously behind it is a server. It can be a functionality within an app, or it can be a standalone app. So essentially, if you have a data passport, you should be able to activate what we call data passes by pulling data from different sources. And then by pulling this data, we have merchants that want you to come to their shop, come to their business. They can offer you different perks, discounts, or freebies, or even content for who you are, of which you are in control. Next. So how it works, when individuals get a personal data passport, they'll be given their data server with the personal data account. That means they own their own private self-sovereign identity. They can then transact on what we call zero PII data pass, which means your identity doesn't have to go with the pass. You can tell someone you're allergic to nuts. You can tell someone you're above 21. You can tell someone your average income. You do not have to give your entire digital identity and everything about yourself. And that's what zero PII data passes are. Of course, there are other data passes that has identity, especially if you're applying for mortgage. It may come with credit score or a KYC score. Next. Data passes are verified from trusted sources. So you can pull and activate data passes that comes from a bank, say KYC, your hospital, in terms of you being vegan, or as a graduate or a tax resident. And because you pull this data, merchants really want you as their audience. So imagine you're a restaurant and you're trying to cater to vegans. They will then offer different services. This direct matching happens within the passport, or whichever application that has a passport functionality. The person can tap a data pass and see the different services. Next. There are many, many different offers for data passes. You can offer in athlete data passport, for example, they can offer cash or for research purposes. These are all set within a scheme, so not everything is permissible. There are different kinds of rewards, there's different kinds of discounts and content, and it's largely driven by an issuer of the passport and the network of issuers to drive who their merchants are in terms of showing what kind of merchants for what kind of passes. This will just give you a flavor of the type of offers for data passes today. Next. Data passporting, of course, goes beyond advertising. We enable the sharing of data as easy as payment. So whether it's a credit score or a bundle of documents for mortgage, you can do that as well. It is secure, it's safe, it's private, and you share it only with the organization that you really want, you need to share it with, and with your full permission. Next. We are in Illyria. So here's the Illyria data passport. You can go to illyria.datapassport.com. If you're an Illyrian resident, you can get your data passport. You can activate a particular data pass there called Illyrian resident data pass, which is supplied by Spedion, one of our partners. There are two data passes, two types of data passes that you could, resident data passes. There may be others that can also offer verification that you are an Illyrian resident, but right now it's Spedion that has that. And there are about 11 or 12 merchants that are currently giving special discounts if you are an Illyrian resident verified by that data pass. Next. For merchants, of course, I'm going to go through this very quickly, but if you want to know more, if you want to list on the Illyria Data Passport, just go to datapass.network, find the Illyria resident data pass, and you can know all the details about how to list in the data passport on the Illyria Data Passport there. I'm not going to go into this in detail. Next. If you're an app or a data source and you want to create new data passes, you can of course just go to datapass.network or contact us. It is quite easy to make data passes. In parts of the world, we have quite a number of data passes that are just membership alone, because they don't have to then build their own loyalty program. They don't have to build their own membership passes. It's all there. And on top of it, any data that makes itself its way to becoming a data pass, and if it gets transacted in the network, the source get passive income. And of course, on that basis, the matching is on the basis that if you have customers, there is another business that also would like your customers to be their customers. So round and round we go in the network, and in a closed network, particularly like a city or a particular sector, you can find that this matching is far, far more efficient. Next. For individuals, of course, without doubt, it's all about you. You get to own your data, you get offers and services, it's convenient, you can fill out forms, forms can become data passes, on and on and on. Next. We get approached a lot by impact programs, community programs. There's a big program in Malaysia running on weight loss where they can track, and also without any identity and making sure that everybody is private. They can track they're trying to track how many people can actually lose weight together to lose 1 million kilogram of weight. And so with full tracking and measurement in terms of all the way from getting a passport, all the way to having impressions and audience to reach, all the way to conversion that you actually transact on the pass at a merchant, it gives full end-to-end tracking and measurement for impact, which is a very big thing for those who are doing community and impact programs. Next. Many more data passes are coming, and you'll be very surprised. It's not it's not very obvious that an app's data is matched to another business's customer. So just because in banking data you can verify that you're above the 21, then this is really sought after by websites that sell alcohol, for example. So there are different passes and different perks, and that's essentially what we do in the Data Pass network to match you up. Next. Illyria is in good company. We're doing some amazing work around the world. Rwanda is looking at issuing data passports to share mental health status weekly to give people ongoing care and services for while they're undergoing treatment, so that they're kept engaged. And that brings the whole community together, because the community can give, as merchants and businesses can give free rides and bus rides to the colleges or training, or even just having a cup of tea. In Malaysia, I mentioned that they're doing a massive nationwide weight loss that's starting. In Brazil, data passports are sharing risk scores to allow micro lending, enabling microloans of $100 to $200 to be given to people who do not even have bank accounts, because they are able to share their Facebook data and some of the psychographic risk score. Next. This is a case of Brazil, where we essentially showed that $1 impact has a huge multiplier. And this is the one that we keep showing again and again to the World Bank and to many of the economies around the world, to show that if there is data ownership, just like there is money ownership, the multiplier from data ownership is massive. Return it back to individual citizens, let us control it, make it safe, make it secure, make it private, and you'll find that the economy will flourish. Next. Of course, what we want to do is to emerge the new data economy 2.0, basically hoovering up all that is in data economy 1.0 and transforming it into a safer internet, where individual PDAs or organization PDAs can actually start to use the value of data and emerge a whole generation of data pass enabled applications. And so issuers from around the world, as well as merchant acquirers around the world, join the network, all gets to benefit. And as the infrastructure we provide our fundamental core infrastructure is open source in terms of that data and the data server. And so this is something that would be good for everyone. Next. Oh, I didn't realize this was actually animated. Oh, thank you. Let's move on. Oh, that's all I have. Thank you very much.
Irene, thank you for that presentation. And we'll open the floor up for questions that folks may have.